Hi there, my name is Steve Gerhardt, and as always, this is the Unagi Observer. Welcome to the 2026 season of the Unagi Observer. It starts, we're going to do a anime review today. We're going to talk about, let's see here, A Night of Seven Kingdoms, my thoughts after watching the whole series on it, and a little something that came across my screen lately, and it was Joe Rogan talking about Aikido, and I have a couple thoughts on that. Anyway, let's get started. Okay, so I've been meaning to watch Blue Eye Samurai for quite some time. One of my degrees is in studying Edo period Japan, the Tokugawa period, if you will. So this kind of interests me because it takes place in that time period. But before we get into the review, just for those of you who are new, the way that I do reviews is I do a 3-episode treatment, which means I watch the first 3 episodes if it's episodic. If it's a short OVA, like 4 episodes, I'll watch the entire OVA. But usually I do 3 episodes in a series, because by the end of the 3rd episode, you kind of get a feel for the anime, you get a feel for the plot, the characters, character design, the actual animation itself, things of that nature. By the 3rd episode, you get a kind of a good grasp on what you think might be going on, and I feel that you can make a better informed decision as to whether or not you want to continue to watch that particular anime. So, Blue Eye Samurai got the 3-episode treatment, and like I said, I've been trying to get to watch this on Netflix. Came out in 2023, so it kind of fits my kind of newer anime to review. I'm not doing as many old school stuff this season. I'm going to try to do more newish things between 3 and 5 years, or between 1 and 5 years old. So fairly recent in my thoughts, fairly recent. So 2023 falls into that category. So I did Blue Eye Samurai. And just kind of give you just kind of the particulars here. Again, you can find it on Netflix. It is not under the anime section. Now, we're going to be talking about that at the end of this review, and there's a reason for that. The creators is a husband-wife team, Amber Noizumi and Michael Green. So they created this little project, and the studio behind it is a French studio called, I believe, Blue Spirit. Yes, Blue Spirit. So that kind of gives you an idea of why I'm going to have to talk about, is this anime or is this not, at the end of this review. So the story is set in, again, the Tokugawa period, kind of towards the beginning of it. I believe the timeline is 1656 or something like that, and is one of the Sokoku periods, so periods of isolation. And our main character is a Japanese person with blue eyes, and that is denotes that you are of mixed race, mixed heritage, and at that time in Japan, that was, or as some people might view you, oh, you're a demon. Not quite Oni level, but you're a demon. And so there's some discrimination going on. So the character flips back and forth in the first, 2 or 3 episodes of going in the past when they were orphaned, and in the present, so to speak, as they are walking through life and going on their mission. The story starts off with the orphan fighting back against a group of boys, and as this is happening, a meteorite is coming down, and at the end of the fight, the meteorite kind of goes into the ground and knocks everybody down, and the leader of the gang, so to speak, actually is like stunned, but he collects himself, picks up a rock, and is about to kill the kid with blue eyes, and then this blind guy shows up with a cart and basically just shoots him off. Now, at this point, I should stress that in the first 3 episodes that I've been watching, there is no magic, right? Okay, so this is not Avatar, this is not Naruto, this is not any of that. This is just normal people. This meteorite that comes down does have a role in the story, but it doesn't imbue power, if you get what I'm saying. So everyone's human beings, more or less, and they're highly trained human beings. They can do the anime jump. but anyway, so this orphan helps to get this meteorite into the cart of the blind guy, and the blind guy kind of wheels it back towards his place. So this guy's kind of skilled. As a matter of fact, this guy kind of reminds me a little bit of Stick. For those of you who are Marvel fans, you know who that is. That's the guy that trained Daredevil. It kind of reminds me of Stick a little bit, but not so, but not with the lethal intensity. And so they go back to the forge in the house where the blind guy lives. It turns out he's a blacksmith. And then he feeds the kid and then tells the kid, yeah, you can go away now. Kid doesn't go away and kind of sneaks back in, thinking that he's fooling the blind guy. And next morning the blind guy wakes up and goes, wouldn't it be nice if someone made me tea? Which was his point of saying, yeah, I know you were sleeping here last night. I'm blind, but I'm not stupid. And so the blacksmith takes the orphan in, and then that's how the orphan grows up, learning the trade, the blacksmith trade. And at a certain point, the samurai come in to ask the blacksmith to make them a blade, and he's a very good bladesmith. And so, his name is renowned, the little symbol. People know his symbol on the blades. And some of the samurai stick around for a little bit, come back day to day to check on progress, and then they might practice their swordsmanship outside. And the kid wants to learn how to do this. And finally, the blacksmith gives permission, says, okay, once your chores are done and everything, then you can practice at night, and that's fine. So the kid does that. So the kid learns this is kind of awesome combination of skills. Learns how to be a blacksmith and learns how to be a swordsman at the same time. And it's kind of cool to be able to have those two really kind of intense skills. I thought that was kind of a interesting way to marriage two really unique things. So by the end of the first episode, we come to see that the orphan, now taken in by the blind blacksmith swordsmith, and the kid is grown up and decides to go on the revenge trip because there are 4 people known to be in Japan that are Europeans, but they're secreted away. So if anyone ever finds them, the shogunate is going to have them killed, right? But this person knows that they are out there and decides to go out there to kill them because they're upset by the fact that their lives are, very, this person has to live a life of almost a hermitage, enforced a hermitage, because the blue eyes makes people unhappy and discriminated against. You get the idea. So they want to basically get revenge on one of the possible forefathers, so that for giving me a life that sucks. And the samurai wears sunglasses, which are actually kind of cool looking, and to hide the blue eyes. The character's name is Mizu, by the way. So on Mizu's journey, they come to an inn and a ramen shop, and there's a guy there, big guy, very nice, almost childlike, but very big, very strong, and born without hands, named Ringo. And Ringo sees the samurai sitting there. A guy comes in, and he's basically a pimp. All right, he's got these 2 women. He's basically a pimp, and he starts causing trouble and takes a flintlock pistol out, points it at Ringo, the guy with no hands, born with no hands, and is going to kill him. The Mizu, the blue-eyed samurai, stops him basically and cuts off his fingers and slices the gun in half, and then proceeds to interrogate him because that's a Western-style weapon. So Mizu is wanting to know, where did you get this? Because this is a clue to where I might find some of these people. As a result of this conflict, Mizu walks out of the restaurant after spilling blood, and Ringo goes, "Hey, I want to be your apprentice, gets his stuff in and goes out after Mizu. And this is the kind of the comedic portion of the show where Ringo is just a very, enthusiastic, not very bright, again, almost childlike, wanting to be an apprentice, wanting to help Mizu in their journey. And Mizu is just like, no, tries all these things to get rid of him. And then none of them work, and Miso just gives up at a certain point and says, fine, you can carry my crap, basically. So anyway, so they go on, and we see one of the 4 Europeans that are secreted away in Japan, and Abagai, and he is kind of psychopathic. He... And he recommends to the Lord that is hiding him, because he's promising the Lord ways to take over the shogunate. Oh, there's the plot. And it sends the 4 fangs out to kill Mizu. At this point, I should be noted in the story thus far that things kind of come back on itself. So there be characters like the boy who was the leader of the group that was beating up Mizu when they were kids. He comes back as an adult, and that's one storyline. The 4 fangs have a connection to Mizu as well, and the blacksmith as well. So things kind of come back to each other, and so far in the first 3 episodes. And so anyway, so as Mizu is going on this journey, comes across this I forget the name of it, but it's when a bunch of guys are carrying a carriage, men carrying a carriage, and usually a woman inside. Mizu sees the woman inside. The woman is beautiful, and is very willful and doesn't want to be married off. It's that kind of trope going on. So there's that storyline with her father. And saying, I don't want to be married off to the shogun's widowed, one of the shogun's sons, And the guy's just like, well, you're not going to marry that fisherman, meaning this other guy. And so there's that storyline going on. I don't want to give too much away from that because there's actually a lot of stuff interconnected. But I will say that the retainer that serves the woman is voiced by George Takei. So there you go. So anyway, Mizu sees her and is taken, which will be interesting later on. But by the beauty of this woman. So things are starting to coalesce. By the end of episode 3, things start to come together. So that's I think that's the point of where I'm going to stop on the on the plot of this. So if you haven't seen it, there's a lot of stuff going on. I was trying to be spoiler free on this. So anyway, so let's go into some of the other things. So this is not for the kiddos, as I mentioned in the title, not for the kiddos. There is the violence is graphic. Okay. So we're talking gore, we're talking intestines and things coming out and blood spray and stuff like that. There's also adult themes of sex in this. And it's not implied, it's shown. And there are more than a couple scenes where there's nudity involved. And it's really pretty frontal nudity. I mean, you see everything. Everything. No, I'm not sponsored by Coca-Cola, but if you would like to sponsor me, I'll take your money. Anyway, so this is definitely not for the kiddos. This is not a kid story. This is definitely for adults. So just to keep that in mind. There are a couple cringe scenes in there, particularly with the sex scenes. One particular sex scene, I can't really describe it because it's just cringy and it actually gives a spoiler away. But it's just really kind of, you're just like, oh, really? Dude, really? Anyway, so moving right along, there's that. The animation is, I really like the animation in this one. I kind of like this style of animation. It's definitely anime inspired. I considered it actually to be anime style. And so that's why I'm calling it an anime. More on that in a moment. And I think you'll enjoy it as well. The colors where they need to be vibrant are vibrant. When they need to be dull, they need to be dull. So everything has a purpose to it. It's very, it doesn't look detailed at first, but that's a misconception. It is actually quite detailed. So there were a couple moments where I actually paused the show and just kind of took in the scenery, so to speak. So it's very good animation. I really enjoyed the animation of this. The story plot is pretty much as I described it. It's your typical samurai story. If you like those stories, I like those stories, then you're going to really enjoy this. This is a samurai tale. A tale of a samurai and revenge, or so we think. So I think this is overall a very good anime to watch. I think it's thus far I've been really entertained by it. I enjoy it. The historical accuracy, they try not to get into too much of the history, which is kind of nice because sometimes that limits you in terms of your plot. But it's just basically known that, hey, we're in the Tokugawa Edo period, and during a time of isolation. Excuse me. During a time of isolation. So I appreciate that, but I also appreciate the fact that when they do talk about the history, or they show history, or they show things that would be connected to that history, they're fairly accurate. So good job. So would I recommend this to you? Absolutely. Yes. Please give this a watch, no matter how you feel about what I'm going to say next. As noted, this is a husband and wife team, Amber Noizumi and Michael Green, and the studio behind it is a French animation studio called Blue Spirit. Yes, Blue Spirit. And so this kind of falls under the category of what do you think anime is? Because when you look at Netflix, it will not be under the anime genre. It'll be under adult animation. So if you find this, you're going to have to do the search on Blue Eye Samurai, and it'll bring it up under animation, just not anime. So adult animation is a way here in America to describe things that may not be considered anime. The problem I have with that is sometimes you get stuff that has anime style, therefore I call it anime. To me, someone who has been watching anime since they were literally a kid and didn't know even what the word anime was, since basically 4 or 5 years old, I have grown up with this style of animation and how it's evolved over the years, over the decades. This style of animation is anime to me. I don't place anime in where it's made. I place anime in the style that it's made in. Some people disagree with me with that. Fine, that's your prerogative. But I will kind of say this to that effect. If you're talking about that anime has to be more or less mostly made by a Japanese person and or has to be made in Japan, one of the things that I'll point out to you is Belladonna the Sadness. You'll watch that and you'll go, this is an anime, even though it has some anime styles. But it was made by Tezuka. So is it anime or is it not anime? So that's kind of one of those things. Also, kind of like when you watch G.I. Joe, old G.I. Joe shows, Transformers and things like that, you're like, wow, this can't be anime because it's an American TV show. No, that's anime style. That's anime. Or at least that's how I view it. So wherever you land on that, if you feel that it should be, if you're more of a purist and you feel that anime should be made by Japanese people in Japan and or in Japan, then you would probably consider this as adult animation. If you're a person that's more along the lines of, hey, I think stylistically this is an anime or anime style certainly, then there you go. And that's where I fall in. So no trolling. If you want to discuss that subject, that's fine, but you can't be mean. You can't be mean to other people. No trolling, none of that stuff. But if you want to have the discussion, please go right on ahead. So in my parlance, I consider Blue Eye Samurai to be an anime. All right. There is stuff out there that are definitely not anime. I think this is. Anyway, recommendation? Yes. Give it a go. right, A Knight of Seven Kingdoms. So last we left off in the interlude video, I believe I was about to watch episode 4. I did a kind of a review of the first 3 episodes. I thoroughly enjoyed the first 3 episodes, was looking forward to the 4th episode, enjoyed that as well, and of course enjoyed the rest of the series. I think it goes without saying that this is a success for the Game of Thrones franchise. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about my thoughts on the remainder of the series. It's a short series, obviously. And yeah, I just wanted to give you my 2 cents. So for those of you who haven't seen that video, the link is down below, but I will just do a quick recap of basically saying that if you have not read the books, don't worry. You don't need the books to watch this show. If you haven't watched any of the shows, Game of Thrones or House of Dragons, don't worry. You actually don't need, those aren't required to watch and enjoy A Knight of Seven Kingdoms. It's not that A Knight of Seven Kingdoms is its own special little thing outside of the Game of Thrones universe. It isn't. It's very much part of the Game of Thrones universe. It's just that they did it in such a way that you don't need to know all the lore to enjoy the show. And if you are a lore junkie, the lore will be there for you. So if you have seen both shows, if you have read the books or combinations thereof, then you're also going to enjoy this little series, A Knight of Seven Kingdoms, about Sir Duncan the Tall, the Hedge Knight. Excuse me. So I watched the remainder of the episodes, and at this point I'm going to stop. I know I already put up spoiler alert here, but I'm going to tell you again, spoilers. We're going to be talking about the end of the series here. So we get into this really well done battle, and it is at the tourney. Basically, Sir Duncan assaults one of the Targaryen princes who thinks he's a dragon, one of the Targaryen madness, and kicks his butt. And as a result, he's about to be executed, because you don't just assault a prince of House Targaryen, right? They're the rulers of Westeros at this point, and so to assault the princes, to assault the king, is to assault the country. So therefore, you must die, unless you invoke certain rights. So our villain of the show says, no, I'm not gonna do this one-on-one battle. We're going to do I want glory. I want to invoke the dragon within me, because he's quite mad. And he goes, why don't we invoke Trial of the Sevens? Trial of the Sevens, basically, whoever is the accused picks 6 additional warriors to help him with his cause. And the accuser picks 6 people, and they basically joust until they fall off the horses, and they just beat each other on each other until they're all dead or one remains victorious. So one of the accuser or the defender is victorious. And it hasn't been done in like a couple centuries. So people are just like, why don't you just go ahead and fight the guy one-on-one? And he's like, no. Gotta invoke the dragon. The dragon must be seen. So Duncan has a hard time fighting 6 people. Eventually he does. Baratheon is one of them. The squire from the cider house. He becomes knighted, and he goes in with Duncan. The brothers that are jousting each other, and that they broke, like, what is it, 12, they just kept going at each other, jousting. And so that's, was it 2, 3, 4, who is the 5th one? I forget who the 5th one was. You'll have to watch the series, but anyway, he doesn't have enough people. Sir Duncan doesn't have enough people with which to go through the trial of 7. If he doesn't get the 6th person, then it's called off and he's executed, because the gods are not with him. So 7 people, 7 gods in the Game of Thrones things. So at the end of one of the episodes, Sir Duncan comes out and he does a great speech of, will you not join me? And and Prince Baelor, Lord Hand, the heir to the throne of the Iron Throne, says, I will join your cause, and believes in Sir Duncan. And so Sir Duncan has his little army. Next episode, we go into the actual fight, the actual battle, and the way that it's set up is 7-on-7. Sorry, not 6-on-6. 7-on-7. They joust and they come out. Boom. People get knocked off of horses. Some people stay on their horses and they fight. It's just like wonderfully, just chaotic melee, right? And there's like a mist that's on the ground there. It's early in the morning. And people are watching and, cheering both sides on, or cheering basically the accuser. And poor Duncan, he doesn't have really anybody cheering on. They're just kind of going, yeah, rah, rah, rah. But they don't really want people to know, because if, something happens, then they might get killed by the Targaryens. So anyway, so they had put a camera inside of one of the helmets to portray what Duncan is seeing through his visor, through the eye holes in his helmet. Actually, his helmet does not have a visor. It's just one piece that fits over his head. And, there's this wonderful scene where he's looking, you see his eyes from within, and his eyes are wide. He's scared, he's never really been in a fight, right? And so, Aegon, Egg, is cheering him on, and, he's a little bit confused. Duncan is, as the fight is going on. He gets knocked off his horse fairly quickly. And so there's just the chaos of battle. I cannot stress how good they did this battle. And I can only commend having worked in theater. I've worked in a number of theaters. So I am familiar with people who train actors on weapons and how to choreograph fights and things like that. I don't know if you all are familiar with Man at Arms. That's a group that actually not only makes like medieval weaponry and chainmail and things like that, but they also train people on how to learn how to play fight acting with weapons. And so I can only commend the people who are like that, who worked on A Night of Seven Kingdoms on that show. It was gritty, it was muddy, it was brutal, and it just didn't end. And after a while, you're exhausted. You're looking at the people on screen. They're exhausted. They can barely get up and do the thing, and they're just destroyed. And you're just like, it's only a few minutes long, but by the end of it, you yourself are just like, oh my God, I'm so tired. Anyway, so they have this wonderfully choreographed fight scene. Again, spoilers, but here we go. Sir Duncan obviously wins. He forces a confession and a retractment of sorts, and the battle is over. They spend time after, and Duncan's beat up, like one eye is closed. Like the makeup artist did a really good job in just making it just really just like, you're like, oh God, that's horrible. I don't ever want that to happen to me. So Duncan and the surviving knights are on his side are kind of limping back and kind of slowly taking off their armor. They're just like, oh God, everything hurts. And Duncan actually takes a wound, a massive wound to the side. So Prince Baelor comes in. He's in full dress armor, and he's looking down at Duncan, and he's just like, get my maester to help him. He'll be fine. But I just, let's get him some good care here. And Baelor, of course, Lord Han, heir to the Iron Throne, was on Duncan's side, and he's coming in to congratulate Duncan. Duncan gets on one knee and goes, I am your man, sir. And Baelor, being the awesome person that he is, puts a hand on Duncan's shoulders, and I'm getting a little verklempt here, and says, I have need of good men. And so you're just like, this is awesome. And then Sir Baelor says, or Prince Baelor says, my hands feel wooden. I'm having trouble feeling my hand. Could someone please get my suit, or my helmet off? Now, in order to be in the fight, Baelor did not bring armor with him because he didn't expect to be part of the tourney. He was watching one of his sons be part of the tourney. And so he borrowed his son's armor, general fit, same fit. So they help him get the helmet off, and it's one of the knights and the blacksmith who assisted Duncan in making his armor. And you see it from the front of Baylor's face, and you see the two of them looking at the back of the head as they pull the helmet off, and they just kind of stop and just like, oh crap, like just that oh crap face, right? Just like, and you're just like, no, 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 we need Baylor. Duncan needs Baylor. No, don't do. They do. And so you see a quick shot of Baylor's head. He had taken a morning star to the back of his head, and the helmet was dented in, and you could see his brain. Baylor collapses in Duncan's arms. Duncan is like, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, and please don't die. And he's just wrecked because Baylor dies in his arms. Remainder is basically the aftermath of the battle. And, Duncan is kind of laying there, just kind of like against the tree that he's been sleeping under. And Baratheon is next to him, talking to him. And the maester is looking at Duncan. And it's just like, he's not going to live. He's not going to live. And Baratheon's just like, shut up, get out of here. Anyway, so they continue talking. And you get a hint from Baratheon. He's just like, Duncan, you should come to me. I will give you a home. You will be trained by my master of arms. You still need to learn things, but you need to come with me and learn various other things. And you will have a home. You and I could be so strong together. A war is coming. It's one of the iconic lines in the first few episodes of Game of Thrones, where his descendant, Baratheon's descendant, who is the king at this point, at that point, says to Ned Stark, a war is coming. So it's just like echoes of that, right? And you're just like, oh my God, what is Duncan going to do? What is Duncan going to do? And then there's the whole story of him and Egg. And it wasn't hard to figure out who Egg was, right? When you watch the series, you're just like, oh, he's one of the missing Targaryen princelings. And sure enough, that's who he is. And that's kind of how he prevents Duncan from getting murdered after he assaults one of the Targaryen princes. And Baelor's brother, who is not a nice guy, calls Duncan in and says, hey, look, through your actions, my brother died. He could have been a great king. From now on, whatever happens, if something bad happens, they're going to say, Baelor would not have let this happen, and then the rest of my house is going to have to bear the brunt of that, and so are you. And he goes, but my son, Aegon, needs to be a squire. He wants to be a squire. He needs to be a squire, and I need a knight to teach him, and he won't go with any other knight but you. And Duncan goes, no, basically, no, we're not doing that. And so then the episode continues, and there's that little scene with him and Egg is just like, you're not the knight I thought you were. Very, very, very heartfelt scene. But by the end, of course, you see Egg joining up and saying, my father told me to join you. So that's kind of the end of the story. Not really. Watch through the credits, please. If no one has told you yet, please watch through the credits. So again, very well done episodes. There's no actual magic in this. Game of Thrones is kind of interesting because even though they have dragons, they have very little magic going on in there. And there's only one story arc that actually is concerned about magic. Otherwise, it's a straight up medieval kind of tale. And as I said before, this is thoroughly enjoyable. So if you want to give this a nice watch, I encourage you to do so, if you haven't seen it yet, even with the spoilers that you get. But of course, you have to know that by now, at this point, a couple weeks after it's been done, there's going to be a season 2 with Egg and Duncan. So at least you knew that part of it. But anyway, so yeah, I am thoroughly enjoying it, and I can't wait for season 2. Very happy about it. So I normally don't watch or listen to Joe Rogan. just not my gig, not my thing, not what I'm normally interested in. But when I do like research on stuff and I look at videos, watch videos and things like that, stuff appears in my algorithm. And when I'm looking at Japanese history and I'm looking at Japanese like war and things of that nature, martial arts, things pop up on my algorithm. And one of the things that pops up on my algorithm from time to time is Aikido. And as a form of martial arts, wherein you're supposed to, it's a lot of grappling, throwing, and limited strikes. Um, it is not considered to be one of the more useful martial arts out there, but it's a good form of exercise, I think. That's my personal opinion. You can have you might disagree with me on that. But so a number of Aikido things came up, and then there was the Joe Rogan thing. And it kind of surprised me a little bit because I'm like, okay, well, why is Joe Rogan talking about Aikido? Oh, right, he used to do MMA. Okay, it's a short, it lasts a minute, less than a minute. So, let's take a listen to what he had to say. And he went on to say how Aikido was created to help disarm other samurai, so that if you were a samurai and you were in battle and you got your sword, your weapon knocked out of your hand, so to speak, then you would use this amazing martial arts Aikido to try and disarm your opponent, and that's why it was created. Several problems with that, but I will have to say that watching Joe Rogan try to explain it, Joe Rogan spoke the wacky weed on his podcast, and he looked a little baked. So maybe he just got his facts confused. Aikido was not for samurai because it was created after the samurai were disbanded during the Meiji Restoration. The creator of Aikido, I'm going to have to look up his name here real quick. I have it here. I'm going to try this. Monhei Ueshiba. I'm horrible with Japanese names. I'm so sorry. Anyway, so he was born after the samurai were basically no more. The decree came down that there's no such thing as samurai anymore. So he was born, the guy who created Aikido was born after that. So this was not made for samurai, number one. Number two, this is not made to disarm anybody. Number three, this is meant to be, the reason why this guy created this is that he looked at various forms of Japanese martial arts and he kind of picked and chose what he wanted and then combined them into a martial arts system of Aikido, which, if you break down the name, it's harmony, ki, energy, spirit, do, way, path. So basically the idea is to be able to defend yourself and limit the amount of harm you do to your attacker. So that's why I say that Aikido is not very good as a form of martial arts or a system of martial arts, because your opponent pretty much has to be non-martial arts in order for it to work very well. But again, this is kind of a good type of exercise. But I thought it was kind of interesting how it's like some people just kind of latch onto things and they just blurt out stuff. Like Joe Rogan just said, "Oh, this was a way that the samurais trained so they could disarm other samurai in the heat of battle when they lose their weapon." No, that's not it at all. So, a little bit of a historical correction for Joe Rogan. So just wanted to throw that out there. All right, that is the end of the first episode of the 2026 season of the Unagi Observer. Thank you so much for watching the video. It means a lot to me. So we're going to be starting off 2026 strong, and I hope you enjoyed this video talking about Blue Eye Samurai. Let's see here, Knight of Seven Kingdoms, and a little historical flub made by Joe Rogan. Um, anyway, so that is going to be it for this week. Of course, next week we will have what we will have. And as always, we have the Anime Archaeology podcast. Link will be down below. If you're interested in seeing the original Joe Rogan short, the link to that will also be down below. We're going to be talking about stuff on the Anime Archaeology. We're going to pretty soon, at some point, I think Oeda 99, is that right? Is going to be up on the podcast. We got some good stuff on there right now, so please check out the link down below. And yeah, that's going to be it. So stay safe, stay healthy. Love you guys. And as always, watch more anime.